Hello guys, welcome back. I hope you're all doing great. So in today's video, I want to talk about one of my favorite perfume houses, the house of Neela Vermeir. And I have spoken about fragrances from this house in the past. I had samples of Ashoka and Eshal, and there's a video about those fragrances. And then I recently mentioned Trayee, which I have a full bottle of. But aside from those fragrances, I have gotten my nose on a couple of samples. I have them here, and I really do think they're all worth mentioning. The house of Neela Vermeir really has some very, very beautiful, complex, high-quality fragrances, in my opinion. They remind me a little bit of the past fragrances by the house of L'Artisan Parfumeur. They do remind me of those fragrances, the complexity, not all of them, obviously. And the perfumer behind, I think, all of the fragrances by Neela Vermeir is Bertrand Duchaufour, and he really is one of my favorite perfumers, and I think he has done an excellent job with these fragrances. Not all of them are necessarily my style. Not all of them, I think, will turn into full bottles for me personally, but objectively speaking, they're all really, really beautiful. So let's quickly start with one that I already spoke about. This is Trayee. I really do love the packaging. I did mention in another video, they remind me of some of the vintage style bottles by the house of Guerlain. And the way they come actually is with a screw cap, and you take the screw cap off and you attach the atomizer, much like Serge Lutens and a few other fragrance houses. So the packaging is really cute, and this fragrance is perfect for the colder weather. So this is a very rich, opulent, full-bodied fragrance. In fact, I spoke about this in the video where I featured a list of opulent, rich fragrances, and it is predominantly an incense fragrance with a ton of spices. So you have to like your sort of aromatic, spicy fragrances. You have to like something that's a little bit more on the exotic side of things. There's clove in here, there's cinnamon, there's saffron, and you also have a basil note, which is quite interesting. And you definitely get the saffron, you get the cardamom in here, and you definitely get the clove. And the interplay of all of these spices with woody notes, and I think there's vetiver and some ambery notes at the base. Really, what I do get here is the incense. It's the incense and the spices, and I feel like if I had to give a color to the fragrance, it would be a brown color. It's full-bodied, it's rich without being off-putting. It's done just right. Even though you have all of these spices that almost sound like a melange of culinary spices, it's done just right. It's smooth, and I love the incense. I've really grown to love incense fragrances, and this one is just beautiful. So if you like the idea of incense and exotic spices, full-bodied fragrance, but you have to like spicy fragrance, you should definitely try this one. It's really, really beautiful, quite different. I can't think of another fragrance that smells like this one. You do have a lot of incense fragrances out there with saffron and cardamom, but this one smells natural, high quality, and it's done just right. So this is beautiful. Trayee. So the next one is one that I've spoken about. This is a little sample of Eshal, and this is an extrait, and I think that that's the only concentration that Eshal comes in. And so what I did, they're quite expensive. I purchased a 9 ml decant, and I haven't even put a dent in the decant. I was sort of enjoying this one, and I'm not even done with the little sample. I feel like this is more of a warm weather scent profile. And so this one is quite interesting. This is a tuberose fragrance, but a very green tuberose fragrance, which I love. I like tuberose in all forms, shapes, sizes, but I love a green tuberose. And there's a freshness in here and a spiciness. So all of these fragrances definitely have an abundance of spices like clove or cinnamon, and it makes things sort of interesting. It's warming in a fragrance. And here you have this lime freshness in the opening, and I get the lime. And I think there are other fresh notes in here like mandarin maybe, or bergamot. And you have this Petit-Grand in here also. So you have this tuberose, but then you have this sort of almost bitter freshness. I get a lot of the lime, like I said, and I do get a lot of the tuberose. I absolutely love it. There's beeswax in here. Adds just a little bit of sweetness. I love beeswax and fragrance. Here, by the way, there's nothing animalic that comes along with the beeswax. Sometimes you do get an animalic, almost pissy component with beeswax, but not here. This is fresh, this is floral, and this is green, and it's just intoxicating. And like I said, this is sort of a warm weather scent profile. It's so good. You have turmeric and cinnamon in here as well, so it warms the fragrance up. But this is not something full-bodied and as dark and brown in color as something like Trayee. That fragrance is definitely more exotic and darker in color. This one is green and fresh. And yes, you do have the turmeric and the cinnamon, but nonetheless, it maintains this sort of green, fresh tuberose scent profile. I love it. This is one of my favorite tuberose fragrances. If you like tuberose, it's worth getting your nose on this one. So the next one is also a tuberose fragrance, somewhat. This is Pichola. I have just a little sample of Pichola. And this reminds me so much of a fragrance that I own. I own 2 bottles that I think, as of now, I would not go for a full bottle of this one because it reminds me that much of Nuit de Tuberose by L'Artisan Parfumeur. Oh, this is so beautiful. I smell it from here. Yeah, even though I do get right from the get-go that it's a floral fragrance, it does open quite fresh. You have clementine and bergamot, and then you have neroli at the top. But it does come off to my nose like a floral fragrance that hints a little more at tuberose than any of the other flowers in here. And maybe that's because it reminds me of Nuit de Tuberose. And there's something in here that's hinting at something just slightly, just a hint, a nuance of something almost a little fruity, but I can't quite put my finger on it. I know that in addition to the neroli, there is orange blossom, there's jasmine, there's ylang ylang in here, there's tuberose, and I think there's rose in here as well. And then of course you have the spices, so you have these hints of something almost a little cinnamon-like. I think there's cinnamon in here. And you have green touches, there's juniper, and there's also cardamom in here. So it's definitely a theme within these fragrances. There are definitely spices, I think, in all of them. Some of them take the spices into an exotic, darker direction. Some of them keep a fresh, uplifting scent profile. And I think Eshal is definitely an uplifting sort of tuberose. And this one is definitely uplifting as well. And I just love this one. And I would get a full bottle of this one, but again, I feel like it reminds me of Nuit de Tuberose, and Nuit de Tuberose was perfumed by Bertrand Duchefort as well. So that's the interesting part. The same perfumer, 2 different perfumes. I definitely sense commonality between the 2. Yes, this is beautiful as well. Eshal is beautiful. This one is beautiful. So that's Pichola. Next up, we'll talk about Mohur, and I only have a small sample of this one. And this one I liked, but not as much as I like some of the other ones in this lineup. So this one is complex as well. It makes it so difficult to describe these fragrances. This one is not, just generally speaking, I feel like it's not as sort of bright as Eshal or Pichola. I feel like Pichola and Eshal are brighter fragrances. This one focuses on rose. So this one is a rosy fragrance. I feel like the rose in here is a pink rose, like a powdery pink, sort of delicate, soft rose. And I get something a little bit lactonic in here. I get something a little bit woody in here. I get something a little bit green as well. And I definitely get the ambrette in here, so it's musky. So it's this soft, rosy, sort of milky, creamy, lactonic fragrance. Very, very refined, creamy, smooth, very smooth and round. But I do get the musky components from the ambrette, and I love it. Love ambrette in fragrance. In fact, I was recently sampling L'Ecrit by Parfum d'Empire. That's a sort of ambrette, musky take on rose and iris. That's really pretty. But this one is really, really nice. A very nice, soft, rosy fragrance. And this one, like a lot of the other fragrances, the spices I feel like sort of warm things up a little bit. There's coriander, there's black pepper, there's also elemi in here. There's a carrot note, there's a leather note. Very complex note listings for these fragrances. But this one I will say, and I've had this on skin, I don't get anything leathery. The carrot I can see. I think the carrot gives something a little bit vegetal, maybe a little bit powdery. There's orris root in here as well. So you definitely do have a powdery element, but I do get something creamy lactonic. I think there's like a milky note in here. This one is a nice one as well. The problem is I like too many of these. So in the end, the takeaway, how I would describe this one, is a soft, rosy fragrance that does have almost something creamy lactonic. It does have a powdery quality to it. It definitely has a musky component from the ambrette, but there's a sprinkle of spices, cardamom, coriander, there's black pepper. So it warms things up. It warms the soft, rosy components. It warms it up without taking it into a full-on sort of exotic dark fragrance the way Trayee does. It doesn't do that. It's somewhere in the middle. It's not as fresh like Pichola or Eshal. It's somewhere in the middle. It's a really nice, soft, rosy fragrance. So if you're thinking like a dark rose, like a full-bodied rose, no. I like this. I do like my rose-centric fragrances as well, but this one sort of does a lot with the rose. There's a lot going on around the rose. And at the base, there are some ambery components, I think, but the woody base is definitely how this dries down, retaining the rosy quality for sure. So this is really nice. Next up is Bombay Bling, and I really did want to get my nose on this one. I'm not sure what I think of this fragrance. I did try this on skin a few times as well. I've had these all on skin. The opening of this fragrance, without knowing the notes, I was thinking it smells like an incense fragrance with something sharp, something very tart, something fruity, tart. Could not put my finger on it, but I knew that it wasn't a scent profile that I personally enjoy. And then when I looked at the notes, it's a lychee note that's in here. With mango, black currant, there's frangipani, so there's something a little bit tropical. You have that like tropical hint to the floral component. I think there's tuberose, there's gardenia, Turkish rose in here. I'm not sure if there's ylang ylang, but you do have a brighter scent profile. So this one, even though there are spices in here, this one doesn't come off as exotic as the others that I've gotten my nose on. And this lychee note, I'm just not a fan. I'm just not really a fan of that sort of scent profile. And even though the opening, I felt like I was getting incense, I don't even think there's incense listed in the note pyramid here. In the base, you have woods and a tobacco note. I'm not getting tobacco either. I'm not really getting anything tobacco-y. I'm not getting anything dark whatsoever. I'm getting florals, I'm getting brightness, I'm getting fruitiness, and it's coming off like a fragrance that I might wear in the summer. Even though there are spices, they're toned down. They're not as apparent as in some of the other fragrances here. I think it's cardamom and cumin. There's a mango note. I almost forgot. There's a mango note in here. So the lychee together with the mango, together with the frangipani, together with the other florals. It's nice. I'm not sure that I would say that the cumin is giving anything sort of funky. There is cumin in here, but it's not funky. I'm not sure if it's the type of scent profile that I see myself wearing. So that's Bombay Bling. Let me know if you guys are familiar with that one, if you guys like it. So last but not least, I saved one of the best for last. This is Rahele. I have a little sample. So what's interesting about my experience with this fragrance, I've had this on skin, I would say 3 times, maybe even 4 times. There's still plenty left. And each time I decided that this would never be for me. And so I would have said, if I did not continue to sort of test this out and fall in love with this, if I would have spoken about this at some point earlier, I would have said that this is my least favorite, and now I'm absolutely loving this. This is an interesting fragrance. I have this on my left hand, maybe a little bit difficult to describe, but I will try. So in the opening, and I think that's what I was not loving about this fragrance, I was getting a lot of the violet leaf in the opening, together with this freshness from mandarin, and then you have spices, there's cardamom and cinnamon in here. And I always felt like I was getting something maybe a little bit ozonic with the violet leaf, which sometimes I like and sometimes I don't like. And then you have the florals in here, and you have a number of florals. You have violet, you have iris, you have rose, magnolia, I think there's jasmine, and you have osmanthus. And along with the osmanthus, which is textured and can give you sort of like a leathery texture, there is a leather note in the base of the fragrance. And so I think the magic here is as it dries down and the dry down, it is this buttery, leathery fragrance. I do get the osmanthus. I do get a little bit of that like rose violet. It gives me something almost a little bit lipsticky as the fragrance is developing. It's very interesting because it opens with this violet leaf with the cinnamon and the spicy components, and it almost feels masculine to my nose. And then these florals start to come into play. So it's quite a complex fragrance. And I do pick up the osmanthus, but at the same time, I was also picking up that rose violet briefly, and then the fragrance continues to develop. And while I still get that violet leaf, I get something rosy in here as well. So I feel like the violet leaf, the rosy aspect is what I'm picking up, and the osmanthus as well, in addition to this like rose and this violet. It definitely comes off very, very unisex. Even though all of these florals are listed and it's a floral heart with the iris, the rose, the jasmine, the magnolia, the osmanthus. Not that osmanthus is feminine, but it definitely comes off like a unisex fragrance. It gets smoother and a little bit darker and less floral as it dries down. And even when you are getting the flowers in here, it's really not coming off like a feminine fragrance. There's enough going on. The leathery components, the woody components in the base, maybe the cinnamon with the cardamom, and the violet leaf. I get a lot of the violet leaf in here. So I think that is what is bringing this into this sort of slightly masculine direction. I was thinking it smelled masculine at one point, and so I wasn't a fan. So that floral sort of component in the fragrance, that rose violet that I get, is only for a few moments. Like I said, that sort of goes away, and I get a lot of the violet leaf with this like rosy sort of backdrop, osmanthus, and then it gets a little bit darker, and you have the cedarwood, sandalwood, there's even oak moss in here. And when it dries down, it's definitely textured. So I have it here on my hand. It's definitely textured. It's definitely not coming off like a super floral fragrance. Maybe a little hint of something rosy, just a hint. Really, really smooth, very complex, beautiful. I think this is a beautiful leathery fragrance. It's not leather in the sense of like animalic or the saddle of a horse or horsey, nothing like that. Smooth, buttery texture. That's what it's giving the fragrance, a smooth, buttery texture. Really, really nice. I like this. Yeah, I pick up on that osmanthus as well. I love the buttery dry down. So Rahele is definitely on my wish list, for sure. So let me know in the comments if you guys are familiar with any of these fragrances by the house of Neela Vermeir. As always, thank you so much for watching, your support, and your comments. Until next time, bye guys.